Can everyone hear me all right? Maybe just some thumbs up on the chat would work as a sounding. There we go. I feel like that was a really big unveil. Cameras on, microphones on. Thanks for waiting. Do we have Shri or have we lost him? Beauty.
Delay after your big entry.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for joining, Shri. Good to see you and good to have you here.
Cheers, thank you.
Look, we're a couple of minutes past 5, so I thought we'll jump into it. People can join as we start. But look, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate you making the time, especially this close to Christmas. Calendars and things are starting to become pretty busy. So we'll keep it to hopefully 60 minutes. And then let you free. But before I make any formal introductions, I think it'd be a good idea just to give a bit of backstory around how the webinar came about and really what's the purpose of tonight. So Shri and I have known each other for, I think, going on over 2 years now. And I think the conversation spawned around, from my firsthand experiences, from Revenite's firsthand experiences and his, where can we provide value to people from being in this industry? We're talking around the success factors involved of a life cycle of a data governance program, and really it boiled down to 4 aspects, and that was going to be the preparation, the planning, the implementation, and then the management. So there's a lot to cover, a lot of information we could talk about, a lot of points and factors we could bring up. So hence the reason for splitting this into a 2-part series. The one tonight, we're going to focus on preparation and planning. We also, myself and Shri and Revenite, hear a lot of recurring questions and recurring points that come up during these types of engagements. We decided that throughout this event, focusing on and addressing several of the most common would be a really good way to provide benefits and key takeaways for people that are listening in. So, each point and each slide will focus on a specific question to answer. Throughout the event, if people have questions for myself or for Shri, please feel free to hold on to them, remember them, or jot them down in the chat bar on the right hand side, and we'll come to that right at the end. But yeah, look, in terms of an introduction for most of you, you're probably aware of Revenite and who we are, but to give you the golden overview, we're a Melbourne-based cloud analytics and business intelligence consultancy with a well-established now data governance practice. We sit once again from an end-to-end standpoint in consulting, from strategy and advisory through to delivery and support, and that shines through the work that we've done in data governance as well. So this is the likes of helping our clients and businesses shape their governance strategies, forming steering committees, driving change management activities, all the way through to tool selection, as well as integrating best practices around data governance. The other thing to note is our partnerships, one being with Microsoft themselves. A lot of the work that we do is across their ecosystem, as well as Elation, which is a leading data governance and cataloging tool in the market today. And look, I think one of the key points there is, the solution that we provide needs to fit the problem. So we don't go in and we don't engage a single solution fits everything. We'll right size it, and we tend to use the terminology fit for purpose here at Revenite as well. But look, without further ado, I'll hand it over to the guest of honor and let Shri introduce himself properly.
And Revenite, thanks for the opportunity. Just a bit about myself. I've been working in the data and analytics domain for a decade now, and I'm very passionate about data, and I've met and attended a few of the data governance roundtables Revenite hosts with a few of you. Outside of work, I am a cyclist and a climate activist, and I do take time to support graduates from La Trobe University as an industry mentor, working with business analytics and data science graduates, postgraduate students. That's a bit about me, and I'm currently working with AEMO, Australian Energy Market Operator, as a data governance lead, establishing their data governance practices as AEMO transitions into an Azure cloud. Thanks, Remy.
Yeah, look, the feedback I have from the people that you've tutored and mentored is always very, very positive. So I know you're doing some good work with the next generation that are coming in. And look, to start us off, really where I think would be a good place is to look at data governance at itself first. I know that a lot of the people that are tuned in tonight are from a diverse range of kind of maturity when it comes to this, and yeah, defining and providing some clarity around what we see, yourself and I see as data governance would be really good. So look, I'll hand it over to you to give your overview of data governance, and then also how it relates to information management also.
So I guess what I would start is the broader domain of information management. There are multiple practices within the information management as data is managed within the organization. So the multiple aspects of managing information as it flows through, like protecting privacy and protection, risk management, records and information management, and data governance is one such practice, which is part of the broader information management practice, and data governance focuses on a variety of things. It talks about ownership, it talks about classification of that data, how to track lineage, security, and quality. So all the functions or sub activities within the governance, they have one purpose. The purpose is to provide a service to the business and enrich the quality within the decision making journey. So if you look at data to decision as a process flow from left to right, governance keeps an eye on the entire journey, but different levels. It's about creating a value to the business. It's like a governance activity. A generic example I would use is about Vic Roads. Let's look at Vic Roads. What does Vic Roads do? They put road rules, traffic cameras, speeding signs, school zones. On all these, they provide an experience to the users and keeps us safe. And the same fundamental with data. We need to protect data is the asset of an organization, and governance purpose is to make sure it's protected and it's relevant for business use. And governance can be looked at into a variety of use cases or scenarios. And we talk about ownership quite a lot in the governance journey. Is about the first question, that who owns data? Who owns data? Who will take accountability for it? And it starts about should the business own it? Should IT own it? Who takes ownership for it? And by taking ownership, there are responsibilities that come with it. Decision making, funding initiatives, and troubleshooting when there is a problem. And lineage and quality, they're more related to data literacy, is about how well does our people know about our data? Do they all interact with the information in the same way? Do they use the same definitions? Do they know where information is coming from, where it is going? So these are the aspects of a broader data governance journey. It collectively enriches the capability within the business.
Yeah, cool. And something that we chatted about, I think when we were putting this all together, Shri, was I think a lot of businesses or people really jump straight into planning, and you need to take it a step forward, right? And use the word prerequisites, I think, a lot. And that's one of the most important things to get right and address. So, look, I think you mentioned there were some key things before you even embark on the journey that you really need to validate with the business to see if they're ready for data governance to embark or invest in this.
Yeah, that's right, Remy. It's critical to the success of a data governance journey for any organization is the three things I see I consider as the most important. Is step number one is how well do we know data governance? What is the definition of it? What's the scope of data governance within the organization, and what exactly are we trying to achieve? What is the burning issue that data governance is expected to solve? So that's the problem statement. And the third most important element is about alignment to strategy. The broader organization strategy, business strategy, technology strategy, or data strategy. We'll touch a little bit in the upcoming slides, but those are the three key things I think before planning. I think we need to have a clearer picture on what governance is, what are we aiming to achieve, and how aligned is it to the organizational strategy or technology strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially that second one. Analytics for analytics' sake, or data governance without a problem, that needs to be attributed back to achieving business value.
Yeah, that's correct. So mostly, I mean, generally there would be a problem that a business has been trying to deal with. My current employer, or the previous organization I worked with, is issues like unauthorized access or data quality issues. These are the triggering points. There's a problem that the business is aiming to achieve, and scaling up a broader governance program may not need to be the first thing to do. It's about understanding what the problem is, how it sits within the organization, where is it, what are the impacts and potential benefits upon resolution. That sort of creates the prerequisites area to understand, is it actually worth doing it, or if it is worth doing it, what exactly are the benefits, how could we substantiate?
That's a pretty good segue into, I think, the methodologies around how does data governance become an actual program of work, if you will, and it's that bottom up versus a top down approach. Look, I'm keen to get your opinion on both methodologies, and which has really worked, that you've seen well.
Yeah, there's two different approaches, I guess. There's no right way to solve this problem. It all depends on the it depends two things. It depends on the organization, and it depends on the maturity and the pace an organization works, and the size of the problem. So over the last 3 years, I've seen both bottom up and top down approaches. So a bottom up approach I've seen work within the operation space of the utility sector, where there is a problem with data quality, which has to be fixed immediately because there was operational needs. But it was siloed. There was only one particular business unit who was getting the benefit from it. There's not really a strategic thought process that went into before taking up a governance activity. And but bottom-up exercises tend to be costly. It may not appear so, but they tend to be costly over the long run. An example of that would be operations doing a siloed exercise to remediate data quality, for example. Sales is another consumer of the same data, but they start to do their own thing. Finance starts to do their own thing, but these three tactical siloed exercises eventually end up as a very costly when you look at it from an enterprise view, which is the top-down model. So the top-down model takes a strategic view of the problems within the enterprise. So any solution or any strategy that is developed is thought through. There is a 3-5 year roadmap. And usually these are scaled up as projects to incorporate a new capability into the business, and then they are capex projects, so they're more cost effective to deploy as opposed to be running multiple siloed exercises. The observation I have made is organizations, there's nothing wrong in doing bottom up or top down. So the organizations that decide to do a bottom up approach tend to build up a silo and nurture the silo, and there may be conflicts with enterprise at some point of the time where there is a holistic view of how to run a governance exercise at an enterprise level. And in case where there is a strategic decision made to deploy a technology, for example, like Calibra or Elation or Informatica, it brings together those capabilities, and top-down approach would be deployed seamlessly as opposed to be bottom-up.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting to put them together like that. And I mean, now that once you've gained traction, you've got an investment, there's a want for data governance. How do you then, transform that into a potentially a roadmap, right? What does that transition look like?
So once we go through this sort of understanding the current state, right? Let's take an example, right? So we have a business unit with a problem with data quality, and it needs a discussion at an enterprise level. Three things that are required to do the planning is step number one is, again, defining the problem. Number two is securing executive sponsorship, which is really critical in scaling up a governance program. And number three is to elaborate on that business case. What exactly is the return on investment, scaling up a proof of value program or trialing out a new technology. So these three things will actually get the ball rolling. But then as the business thinks about scaling up a governance program, the thought process should always be think global but act local. So we got to take a holistic view of the enterprise. However, it doesn't mean we got to change the world overnight, but when we have that strategy of doing governance at an enterprise level, but we can prototype that on one particular unit with a set of principles, the governance framework, and an operating model. And it sort of helps to iterate and learn from those implementations.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Do you have an example where you've seen that happen, either now or in your past, where that's worked really well? And
Yeah, I
you may not be able to, provide too much confidential information, but at a high level.
I'll keep it generic. The two, both I have a success story and a hot potato story. So we attempted to take on too much, try to transform. So the first one is going to be a learning, so which means we took a wrong step in the right direction. So it was in the higher education industry where we're trying to change, implement a business glossary. So which is sort of like a dictionary for the business to go in and understand the jargon that is used within the industry and specific terms and stuff. We attempted to do it at the whole university level, which was we learned later on that it's not feasible to do it that way. And the challenges with that is stakeholder engagement and the available resources. So it was a group of small team. And stakeholder availability has been a challenge. So doing too much at the same time was not a great idea. So our learning was size up the work, which is what I could talk about an example. My current role, where we actually work with business domains. So we've identified business functions and business domains, and we work with 2 business domains every quarter. And scaling up in that manner is quite successful. And the significant difference is I was able to show progress to the business leaders over a period of 2 quarters. We could show the progress. It was measurable, and they could see the difference in it, as opposed to by my previous learning, where it was quite a bit slow, because we're trying to do too much at the same time, and it's like tinkering from a big mountain which is not moving much.
I think you said it before. It's, what is it? Is it think global,
Think
act
global,
local?
act local. Yeah, sounds
That's
like sales marketing, but yeah, that's how I sort of think. What I meant by that is basically anyone, I mean, governance journey is going to. It's a big governance is really big, and it's not practically possible to do everything at the same time. However, cultivating a mindset of thinking enterprise and applying that on a specific use case over a quarter or a half over a financial year, it's still gives a good strategic direction to our stakeholders and confidence in that embedding a new capability into the business, which is sustainable, which is why people are engaging more and want to do governance. There's support from business stakeholders to saying, yep, it makes sense. What can we help you with?
Absolutely. Yeah, look, in terms of I guess the next phase, right? Prerequisites, the preparation, then you start to look at the planning. And I think there are so many factors, once again, that you need to take into consideration when starting to uplift data governance practices. Revenite have worked with small organizations through to enterprise-sized businesses as well. And I think the misconception that I personally have, because I'm not on the ground, I'm not doing delivery, was that the size of the business would play a big factor into something to consider when you're forming a roadmap. But look, I'm keen to throw that over to you, Shri. Is that something that's important, or what else is there that really needs to be factored in?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I've heard about size of the business in multiple forums about does it really have a role to play in creating a plan for governance. My observation and my approach is size of the business doesn't really matter, but there are other factors such as size of the data footprint. For example, a variety of data sets within the business, how many databases, how many transactional sources, on-prem or cloud. These sort of technical aspects would influence the planning of a governance program. So, for example, even the fundamentals of governance could be the same, but the way they're applied or the way data models are designed. For example, two significant use cases everyone could relate to is first business intelligence. Number two is artificial intelligence or advanced analytics. When we're trying to apply the governance principles, they both require to be planned completely differently, because the underlying workings are completely different. That needs to be factored in planning the governance work on how would it work. And the second one is about understanding the business. What we sort of take this approach about business domains, primary and secondary. So the definition of primary is about what is the core purpose of the business? What are we here to do? An example is I am a retail company, and my objective is to sell some products. So my core purpose is sales and marketing. And the secondary business would be my human resources team and my finance teams. Oh, that's my daughter, sorry.
You got a visitor.
So the human resources, finance, payroll, those business units who actually are there to support my primary business function becomes the secondary domain. So it helps in creating a structure for applying and planning a governance activity. It helps down the track when we talk about implementation and management. In the second one, we could look at how this structure could come in handy in prioritizing and assessing value back to the business. Now, the third one we've touched on earlier on is about alignment to technology. Now, I'll elaborate a little bit more on why that's really important. Is data governance is behind the scenes exercise. It's not a visible product like a dashboard or like a revenue stream. It's intangible benefit. It's important to understand how we can align it to the org strategy. An org strategy could be, we would like to provide our customers a seamless digital experience. Now, digital experience is completely dependent on data. So a data strategy would be part of the digital transformation strategy. And aligning the data strategy should be the governance strategy. So if the data strategy is defined to be transitioning to cloud, for example, or transitioning to a big data platform or an open source. So the governance strategy should complement the data strategy and adopt the org strategy principles and define those frameworks and operating models which will actually enrich the above, the org strategy, the data strategy, business strategy, and technology strategy. So it has to be in alignment with all the three, and which is why it's crucial to engage those stakeholders upfront before we talk about planning of these ones, planning a governance work.
Yeah, I think that's really important. If those are sitting in silos and there's a lack of communication, things start to fall apart down the track. And look, I think we could talk to that point and the hows and whys, and your advice on bringing those three parties together. I know you've done it in a number of different ways, but it probably warrants a whole nother conversation. We'll probably get to that during the second half of the series.
Yeah. So if so with the planning one, it also applies to, let's say we are doing a top-down approach. So usually when a top-down approach is done, it's done in a methodical manner. It's not tactical. It's thought through. So there would be a program manager who would be putting the business case together, and part of that activity is the alignment to strategy, and then it gets worked down through the top-down approach.
Easier to do when you're doing top-down versus bottom-up.
It's good for the organization. It's strategic. The way I would say is it's not bleeding money, which is why I see tactical siloed as bleeding money, which may not be quite obvious. But if we take a step back, pause and review the spend or the effort spent on a remediation exercise over a period of 2 years, it doesn't add up. It's a lot of FTE effort, hidden FTE effort, which is not coming up straight through. However, if you look at a project, there is a spend there. It's like, oh, what are we doing with this spend? However, my observation with the bottom up approaches is the results are quick. It's a remediation, so they'll quickly write a SQL script to fix up some issues, and it's patched. So what we're doing is we are patching a root cause. However, when we talk about a top-down approach, we're actually fixing the root cause. In most scenarios, either with the deployment of a technology that enables that capability, or by scaling up a holistic view of the solution. So it could go multiple ways. Yeah.
It's that reactive versus proactive mindset, really. No, that makes sense. Look, I think we'll jump onto the final slide and the final point in question for planning, but this one is definitely the most common through conversations, past roundtables, and what we hear in the market. But it's who drives the bus when it comes to data governance? Is it IT or the business? It's parallel between the two. I think the simple answer to that is it's definitely both. I think we can agree on that. But the more difficult question is how that bus is driven. A lot of the time people wrongly assume that technology on its own is going to solve all their problems. There's a quick fix, a data governance tool in the brochure sells you, click of the fingers and your pain goes away. The other is that the business, sometimes thinks that IT handles all this, and that a data team, if a business has that capability, is responsible for a lot of these activities. Our methodology at Revenite very much is three things when it comes to data governance, and it's the three things working together as well, not in isolation. It's people, process, and technology. Those are the three ingredients to get right when you're planning to invest and embark on data governance and that journey. So we've always been closely aligned, Sri, I think, on that.
Yeah.
But I think going into detail around those three things and how you factor them in during the planning phase would be really useful for people listening in.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've sort of nailed it on the head with the people, process, technology aspect. It's a really important combination to conduct any sort of planning exercise. Especially in the governance space. So my observation on data governance is, for me, it's all about discipline and structure, and it needs to be partnered with the business and technology. It's not a solo journey as such, and it's always to successfully do governance, it's important to take the business stakeholders and technology stakeholders on a journey, because in principle everyone agrees data governance has value. In every organization is driven by data these days, and it's hard to find someone who does not talk about data. So in that context, it's about understanding that data governance is actually not a project. It's a continuous improvement journey. It doesn't end, it evolves. And in that journey, it's important. While we plan that journey, the significant role is with people. And people in the business and in the technology. So we have business SMEs or functional expert, technical experts, database designers, data engineers, name it. People aspect is big. It's about important to engage identify the relevant stakeholders and engage them. So that's the big step. And the second part is about process. How we go about planning a governance makes a lot of difference, and the process includes impact assessments, change managements, communication strategy, and publishing those plans and artifacts and hosting those workshops. There's how we go about it makes a lot of difference. And technology, the most important part is technology is an enabler. It improves, it optimizes operations, saves a lot of money if it is done the right way. And technology will do the current state analysis about what do we have today and map a target state. What would you like to do in 5 years or 3 years, and identify a gap analysis. What sort of capabilities would we like to enable as an organization as part of the broader governance journey? An example of that would be we would like to address our data quality issues. So that's a capability in itself, and it brings in a process, the people associated with it, and the technology that could help a business enable that improving data quality. I could give another example around data literacy, which is currently part of my brief at my current organization. Is about we would like to provide a technology solution where our people can go look for information and find information about their data. So we're looking at, like, say, a wiki for internal use, which talks about definitions, descriptions, lineage, catalog. It gives everything to the user. So the objective is education, and that's enabled using a technology platform where we have co-designed the processes with the business support, and we call them data stewards. But yeah, they bring together their expertise in the area. So people, process, technology it's really critical to have the right combination and balance and engagement during the planning process for a successful journey later on.
Awesome. I don't know if I've ever asked you this though. Out of those three, what do you find the most difficult? You come from a technology background. I'm sure that's probably your strength. Is there something that you see as being the hardest out of the three to get right?
It's not about getting right. It's about engagement. For me, engaging and securing buy-in is. I'm sure everyone would agree with me on that. Is securing the buy-in is the first hurdle for the governance journey. Is about it requires people's expertise and people's time. And when we say people, it's about decision makers in the business, executive sponsors, functional technical SMEs within the business, governance teams or governance. My team, they're technically capable. They're understand the governance methodologies and the operating model. They are not business experts. That's where my first challenge is people. So I focus. The first thing is engaging people. Having a clearly documented change and comms strategy is my first thing I do. That's how we secure buy-in. Regular meetings, regular workshops, engagements. It helps to secure people's time. Process and technology, manageable. They are actually much easier once we have the engagement sorted.
Yeah,
And
cool.
technology is dependent on, again, it has a tagline of funding to it. How do you secure funding for a technology? And again, it sort of is a very difficult approach when you do that in the bottom-up approach. It might be a slightly structured, methodical business case process in the top-down approach.
Yeah. No, I think that's what I normally hear as well, around being the most difficult, the first hurdle to overcome. Well, look, thanks, Tree. Appreciate all of the guidance, the recommendations, sharing your experiences. I'm sure it's helped a lot of the people that are listening in. Before we jump into questions, I think there's been a couple come through throughout the event that I'll ask to yourself. Just a couple of points around Revenite's ability and our experience in this field, and around how we can support you in both phases, whether it be the preparation and planning phase of data governance. So the first one is a half-day workshop or assessment. And look, this is something we definitely don't do often. It's something that we wanted to do as a favor for the people that have spent the time interested in coming along to the webinar. What it would be is really a high-level discovery of what you're currently doing around governance processes, sharing our success stories, sharing our war stories, what we've seen work and what hasn't worked, and providing some recommendations on, what next steps you should be taking. The second is the Data Governance Accelerator Program. We call this our Fast Start. It's a solution we've created and definitely successfully tested in the market across our core industry verticals. It provides an in-depth current state analysis of what you're doing. That's both across technology, people, and process, and then looks to work with the business and IT to identify where your target state is and where you want to be. So workshops across a number of weeks are conducted, and we have inbuilt frameworks and methodologies spanning data management, data governance, change management that we'll use to close those gaps. And what's produced at the end of that is a detailed roadmap that includes a series of recommendations on how, one, to close the gaps, but also how do you continue scaling, and how do you continue uplifting the maturity and continuing to invest and kind of generate success when it comes to data governance. So look, I'll put a poll once again on the right-hand side. If it's something that you're interested in speaking about more, either of which, look, over the next few days or week before the Christmas break, would love to speak to anyone that's interested in hearing more about either of those solutions that we provide. But that's it from my end. I might jump back over to the questions as well. I think I've had a couple have come through at the moment. Shri, are you still there? Nice. Thought you'd run off. Thought that your daughter had pulled you away.
I had a visitor again, so I just had to turn the camera off for a bit.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
I've got a question from Kritika. Appreciate for sending it. I think this is a two-part one. Look, definitely resonated with the starting with that business domain, and then working the top-down approach, focusing on a business domain, and that's how you gain traction, right? Think global, act local. The question, the first question for you, Shri, is how would you derive a business case to handle the low-hanging fruits, and how do you prioritize that as well, if there are many? The follow-up question is, are there any sample or examples of business cases that you've seen, are those low-hanging fruit?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kritika. Thanks for asking. So the first one, how would you derive a business case to handle low-hanging fruits? So my last 2 years, what my approach has been, it's called seed funding. It's usually popular in the startup space. So the approach is, you won't really ask for a full-blown business case, but you say, this is the problem we are trying to solve. An example, again, is I go back to data quality because it's easy and everyone could relate to it. So we've got a problem with data quality, and if we put up a business case for deploying a technology solution across the enterprise at X amount of dollars, which may or may not fly, in order to seek expertise, because the ROI calculations are all hypothetical, so it's not substantiated. They're all intangible benefits. However, it would help if we seek funding, which is a proof of concept or a proof of value to address a specific problem within the business unit, and at the same time take an exercise with a technology provider to showcase back to the business that we have attempted to solve this problem using this technology over a period of 3 months or 6 months as a time boxed exercise. The likelihood of getting seed funding is higher because it's not a full-blown business case, but then which could actually feed into the broader business case and say, hey, look, we've taken this up on this particular data set. It worked. We were able to reduce the number of issues, improve the quality of the dashboards or the data within that, and sort of show that, substantiate those results and feed that into the broader business case that there is significant value to the enterprise in scaling up an enterprise level deployment. And you could sort of gauge it if it's it's sort of more, I find that approach more convincing, and I've seen it work at my current organization and the previous organization. And the second one is about prioritization and business cases. Prioritization, again, is an interesting topic when we're talking about business cases, because if we take an enterprise view, the solutions available for everyone. For example, data quality, and we're deploying a solution for data quality. We might need to prioritize the data sets that goes through the program of work, and that would depend on the impact of the current state problem. So there could be 10 problems, and all the 10 may or may not be feasible to put through the project. So it's easier to sort of pick the top 3. In retail, in utilities, in other industries, the prioritization always happens based on impact to customer. So in the retail space, for example, there is a data quality issue with an email address on the customer record. Prioritizations happen straight away because there is a direct hit to the marketing campaigns. And by addressing that data quality issue, by prioritizing that particular data set, there could be a fast track to benefit. So we could show that we have reduced the issues in our data landscape. At the same time, we have increased our revenue by X%.
Awesome. Thanks, Sri.
Cheers.
I think another question popped in. This one's coming from Artie. What do you find is key to educating and aligning stakeholders successfully on data governance, especially when starting out?
Come from that question over the past 3 years is, I think we've touched it on in a couple of forums as well, is my observation and my experience has been non-technical stakeholder engagement. Over a coffee or in a corridor discussion, it has to be non-technical. If we start talking about master data management and data quality to senior execs, they will listen, but the message is not across. But if we try to substantiate governance into a non-technical language, like we're saying that, I always use the example of VicRoads or any public sector organizations, where we're saying it's behind the scenes activity, but then it improves the quality of your decision making. It improves trust in our data. It improves user adoption. In that language, it sort of helps them to understand what is this all about. Why should I care about? A recent example could be unauthorized access. Data is secure. Certain organizations, retail industry, for example, has customer data which is bound by the Privacy Act. If we talk in that in a non-technical business context examples, people understand. It's like, what is governance going to do? We are going to implement a user access model driven by data classification, where we are going to mitigate the risk of unauthorized access. Simple. They understand it. Okay, you're trying to do something which will stop people from accessing our customer data, unauthorized access.
Thanks a lot, Sri. I've actually got a question myself, and a little bit off topic from preparation and planning, but something I'm always interested in. The analytics and data analytics space is evolving so quickly. There's new technology, there's methodologies. I see, every 2, 3, 6 months, there's something new. In terms of data governance, do you see anything that's around the corner that's going to not necessarily revolutionize the way we do things, but have a big impact, whether that's a tool that you've seen? Is there an organization that you think is making waves in the space? I'm keen to see if there's anything that's kind of jumping out for you.
Yeah, no, governance, there are a lot of organizations who are really mature in the governance space, but did, didn't really make too much noise about that. That hey, we are doing all this governance. I said, but governance is a lot. It's over the last 12, 18 months, ever since we've been talking. There's a lot of interest in the market at a head off level to look at data governance. Beginning is always going to be data quality, because that is the biggest problem for the business to solve. But from a tooling perspective, I think there are multiple tools that have existed and that were really mature, like your Informaticas and SAS. They've always been there in the governance space, offering those capabilities, but maybe they were not that affordable. My opinion, my observation is they were not that. But now the approach has slightly changed. Is about it's flexible and it's iterative. You could do pick a problem, solve it, mature it, go on to the next one, and that's what I'm seeing is, for example, the most recent one, Purview, a lot of offering from Microsoft around the governance concepts, and I've seen Atacama, Colibra, very mature in their offering. And again, the question comes down to what exactly is the business aiming to achieve? Technology can deliver things. There is interoperability. Everything is cloud, cost effective. But the key thing is always about what's the business going to do about governance, and then who is driving that program, and how far can they drive it. And I have heard from people in the network that governance projects, a tool's deployed 2 years ago, underutilized. No one's doing anything about it.
Yeah, okay.
So,
I'm sure that from a tool perspective, there's going to be a lot of investment, a lot of advancement as well, right, to keep up with the changes in analytics in general in the industry around it. That'll be definitely one to watch. There's another question coming from Paul. Thanks, Paul. I definitely like this question. It's probably the defensive versus offensive mentality when it comes to data governance. So, Shri, are you aware of any upcoming regulatory or legislative changes that governance teams need to be aware of? And then can this become an opportunity for teams or people in the space that embrace it early?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of changes happening in the government space around protecting people's privacy. And you would have seen it on Facebook, and Scott Morrison passing a new regulation around disclosure, and protecting user privacy, bringing it to the corporate world. In the utility space, I could talk about there is a new regulation that's coming together about CDR, which is called customer data right, within the utility space, where a customer can actually ask the retailer to provide information about their consumption, their solar generation and whatnot. So the regulations are customized to the industry. Retail has something specific where bound to the Privacy Act, where the customer information, specifically with information sharing between corporations. For example, Flybuys collects your marketing information, and what is it doing with it? So that sort of stuff. It's important for us folks in governance. It's important to understand what's changing, what's going to be added into those acts that we are all working off. So, for example, in the higher ed, there is a University Act. In the retail space, there is a Privacy Act. In the utility space, there is CDR. It helps us to be effective in our jobs, in our industries, and having those updated policies and procedures to protect companies' data.
Anything from the industry as a whole? Any new legislative changes that are coming up? Anything that you've seen or heard of?
So there is talk about replicating GDPR that Europe has adopted, but again, there is no immediate adoption within Australia. But there is a lot of talk around information management from a federal government perspective, but it's an evolving piece, and I'm sort of watching that how it comes down to managing our assets, and how corporations are expected to adopt that.
something to watch
watch,
out
yeah,
for.
over the next couple of years, yeah.
Absolutely. I think we had one final question, and this is an interesting one, tying back to the involvement around, data governance changing due to changes in technology and the data analytics industry. Do you think, as a data governance expert, you need to know all of, or the majority of things like Databricks, be up with, and know AI, machine learning? Is that something that's
The
important, or have you
RBAC,
seen be
yeah.
important?
Yes, it's yeah, it's part of the journey. So the way I've always seen it is about, there is a life cycle for data. Whether it is Snowflake, whether it is SAP data warehouse, or whether it is Azure or SQL data warehouse, anything. So the data life cycle has always been the same. Comes from a source, gets transformed, stored somewhere, consumed by somebody. That's the generic life cycle. Now we could add different latencies onto it with sensor data, real-time data, digital data, but then they all have similar sort of a flow. So now these Databricks, AI, ML. Databricks is a technology. It does similar sort of stuff. AI, ML is again more into the advanced analytics space, where it's evolving significantly, is around ethics in data, ethics in artificial intelligence, and coding biases. That's a really evolving space. I'm sort of getting involved with the AI community to understand how can governance be applied on an AI or an ML program. How is it possible? Because it's evolving continuously, and it's working itself. It helps to be informed so that we are good at our jobs. I've always taken time to learn new technologies, new methodologies. And RBAC is another classic example. Is role-based access control. That's a critical part of my governance journey. Is about how do you bring classification to life. Data classification is a key aspect of governance journey, and how do you bring it to life? Role-based access control is one way to bring that to life. Is about that gives it the purpose. It helps to get ourselves educated. Attend forums. I do attend a lot of meetups and forums to learn from experts in the industry, and who's ventured and ventured out and did a lot of work in the data space. But it all helps in implementing the right frameworks within our organizations, where we have the accountability to do governance.
The technology component of those three parts, if you understand some of those things or have worked in it before, then that's obviously going to benefit yourself.
Yep.
Ethics is really interesting, and it's something that, the question that I asked before around what's coming around the corner, I would have thought that is going to become a very big talking point as we see more AI in products.
Yeah.
And that sort of technology being used. Hey, in regards to data cataloging and the tools that are out in the market, this is only part of the landscape that we see, but which functions do you see emerging in the tool landscape that are actually serving real business needs from a data cataloging perspective?
Data cataloging. I think I've used both Calibra, Atacama, and I've seen Purview. I have seen Informatica cataloging information in SAP as well. They're all mature products, and they all have a really good UI and capability to incorporate a process around into the business. So when you say which functions, what do you mean? Would you elaborate? What do you mean by a function?
Necessarily not the tool itself, but what
you mean
can
the business units within
what can a data
our...
data catalog do to solve a
right.
pain point, to remedy
Sure.
a business
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah.
things along those lines?
Yeah. So data catalogs, generic example, like we get in our mailbox Aldi catalogs, or Priceline catalogs every week, right? So the catalog will tell everything about a product. It's the name of the product, features of the product, price of the product, volume of the product. Data catalog works exactly the same way. So a catalog actually hosts information about data assets. So I could give you an example. I have an asset for retail revenue forecasting. So that's my asset. And then the catalog would host information about what schemas are part of it, what tables are part of it, what columns are part of it. And then it also has the ability to publish information about when was that last updated, how much history does it carry, what sort of classification does it carry, or what is the business description. If you look at our application landscape, something says FTE_MT. What is the business description for it? So catalog hosts a lot of information, and usually a catalog can be beneficial to any business function. Sales and marketing, operations, finance. Every business unit has their unique set of terminology, and their data sets are different. So catalogs can evolve into. So the way, if you see it, is a data dictionary is about a technical dictionary of all the data in the application, and the data catalog talks about the products that were built using these data objects. So that's how it fits into the business journey.
Cool. And almost taking the outside view of that. So
Yeah.
data cataloging being a I guess a functionality of data governance. What do you see as emerging outside of cataloging? I think that we've had the conversation around a lot of the tools now are data governance and cataloging. It seems to be the one that's most prevalent. Is there anything else that you see emerging
Yeah,
from a tool
quality,
landscape?
quality is big. There's a lot of focus on quality with the increased adoption of self-service analytics. And self-service analytics focuses more on consumption and creation of customized, database dashboards or reports. However, self-service do not have a dedicated view of data quality. So the problem to the business becomes, I've got all these fantastic analysts and data scientists giving me this analysis, but I don't know if that data is right. So data quality, there's a lot of focus on maturing the data quality practice. Having a dedicated focus to publish data quality scores. You start tracking them every day, measure it, remediate it, monitor it. So there's a lot of focus on data quality. And the second one I am very close to is about data literacy. It's all about educating our people. Personnel changes within organization is BAU. People come, people work, people go. However, how can we shorten the learning curve within the organization for our data analysts or data scientists? Because I speak with a lot of data scientists, and they're saying first 3 to 4 weeks they just take time to understand what's happening. Well, how can we reduce that? Data literacy is another a big aspect that's evolving. Is about how can we do educate our people, have a platform like what we are doing is about Colibra publishing those catalogs and descriptions and definitions. So that's evolving as well. Data literacies.
And data literacy, you could see as data analysts and data scientists coming into the business. But as data is used more and becoming more important to a business users need to understand what data
Yes.
means and how to use it and where it sits and
Yep.
its relationship with other parts of
Yep.
their working life as well. I think
Yeah.
that's going to become even more important.
100%. 100%. Data is like, it's now everybody's business. It doesn't matter whether you're in treasury, finance, forecasting. It's everyone lives and breathes data, and it just makes it obvious that we have a capability, that will onboard our new employees with this data literacy thing. That's the future state. What my ideal world would be: a new employee comes in, along with their laptop, Windows login. They get a manual to say, hey, this is our landscape. This is where you can find the definitions. This is where you can find the data assets, and do what you're good at.
The education starts from day
Education
one.
stuff. Yeah,
Part of
exactly.
the onboarding package. Hey, I'm looking at the time, and I don't know if I've got any more questions coming through, so it's probably a good place to wrap up. Thanks for answering a host of questions as well, Shri, and again for going through the webinar and being a part of this. I'm really excited for part 2. But look, questions from people that have attended, or more information, whether it's for myself and Revenite, or you want to be connected with Shri if you're not already, I'm more than happy to have those conversations now and in the new year. But look, there'll be some more information when we're back on ground after a well-deserved Christmas break. We'll pencil in a part 2 to the webinar, and it'll be good to see everyone back again. Cheers, Shri. I'll let you run. I think your daughter's probably calling out from you.
She's all right, yeah.
in the other room.
Thanks, Remy and team at Revenite. Thanks for the opportunity, and we'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Everyone have a great Christmas. Have a good break.
Right. Thanks.
See ya.
See you guys. Bye.